Hi everyone, so we are going to start chapter 15 today, which is called the Battle of Camp Gorm. And if you remember, they found Gorm camp in the last chapter, close by to where their new warren is. And it's actually the second to last chapter, but it's quite a long one, so we'll probably only read half of it today. Let's find out what they get up to. It took Podkin several days to convince Crom that his plan would work, and then several more for them to find Bridget's house again. They knew she was somewhere west of Bone Root, along the outskirts of Grimheart Forest, but he had been in no fit state to take much notice when he was last there. So they had to set out on daily expeditions, marking the trees as they went, heading further and further outwards. Eventually, they went so far that they had to camp out overnight in another snow burrow, but were rewarded the next day when they stood before a huge gnarled oak that looked a little familiar. Could this be it? Podkin said to Paz. She shrugged, looking over to where a bored Mish and Mash were doing backflips in the snow. Well, don't just stand around on the doorstep, came a voice from deep in the woods. Walk up and give the door a knock. Mish and Mash both squealed in shock and landed flat on their faces. Podkin and Paz were less surprised when a cloaked figure stepped out from among the trees. Bridget had been there all along. She watched Mish and Mash pick themselves up from the floor with her blue eyes twinkling. Podkin thought they looked much brighter than usual. Bridget's face also seemed less lined, her back not so stooped. Not very agile for acrobats, are they? She said. How did she? Mish began. Know what? Bridget interrupted. I know lots of things, dearie. Come on inside. I've got that potion Podkin's about to ask me for. With Mish and Mash staring as though their eyes were about to pop out of their heads, they all sat around Bridget's fire and shared a pot of stinging nettle tea. She had mixed something up in a leather pouch, which she gave to Podkin. He slipped it into his belt with a nod. For sweet dreams? He asked. Just to check. Bridget winked. And also, she added, I've got that thing you two acrobats were after as well. Bang dust, don't you call it? Mish and Mash gasped. They'd only had the idea of using the explosive powder that very morning and hadn't even told Podkin yet. Bridget went over to one of her cupboards and brought out 2 little barrels, one for each of the dwarf rabbits. Stinky stuff, said Bridget. Mixed it up a few months ago. Had to call in a few favours from an old friend of mine to get the sulphur and saltpeter. I hope you know what you're going to do with it. It was Podkin and Paz's turn to look surprised, but before they could say anything, Bridget took them both by the hand. There's one more thing, she said. I'm going to be coming with you. Back to Dark Hollow, Podkin said. Bridget waggled her ears. Yes, but also on this little expedition of yours. You're going to need me. You can't do that, Paz cried. It's too dangerous. Oh, I can take care of myself, Bridget smiled. Especially lately. I've been growing stronger and stronger every day. Podkin was about to ask what she was talking about, but Paz already had an idea. Because of the balance she told us about. The picture of the snake. Yes, dear. Very good. Bridget patted Paz on the head as if she were a clever student. The Gorm had been growing far too powerful. The balance doesn't like that. It's beginning to swing the other way, and I plan to help it. Podkin wasn't sure what that meant, but it couldn't be denied that she looked like a new rabbit. Even though he didn't want to put Bridget in danger, the thought of having her along made him feel much better about their chances. The next part was much trickier. With Mish and Mash both on watch for the Gorm supply wagon, it wasn't long before it was spotted again. Wobbling along the rutted, snowy track with its weary guards and exhausted rat, the rabbits managed to sneak along behind it, hiding in the snowdrifts and undergrowth. Further up the track, Podkin had used Starclaw to slice down a small tree and topple it across the path, creating a simple roadblock. When the guard stopped the wagon and climbed down to chop the tree out of the way, Podkin and Mash slipped aboard. Luckily, the sound of hacking wood masked any noise they made as they swiftly added Bridget's mixture to all the sacks of wheat and grain. They poured it into the mead barrels and sprinkled it over the loaves of bread, until everything in the cart had a good dose. All the while, Paz and Mish kept watch until the guards had almost finished clearing the tree. Then Paz gave a little whistle and the sneaking rabbits hopped down from the wagon and into the bushes. The guards carried on their way, completely unaware that their cargo had been tampered with. "Tonight, then," Paz said when they were gone. "Yes," said Podkin. "Tonight." His fur bristled with electric tingles at the very thought. It was a full moon with a clear sky, and the stars were spectacular. Podkin could see the big radish, Clarion the Bard, and the goddess herself. All the constellations gleaming amongst clouds of trillions upon trillions of twinkling lights. He wondered whether some rabbits had taken the time to name all of them, and if perhaps he should have spent a bit more time studying astronomy instead of sneaking off for naps and games of tag. The silver glow reflected off the snow all around and glinted in tiny sparkles, like a mirror for the stars. He sat with Paz, Mish, Mash, and Crom. Bridget was there too, with Pook curled up asleep in a papoose under her cloak. They couldn't have left him behind, on his own in Dark Hollow, and Bridget had promised to stay back, out of the camp and the action, although Podkin had spotted the twinkle in her eye as she said it, and he wondered whether she really would. Together they all perched on the brow of the hill, looking down at the Gorm camp. They had wrapped themselves in white woolen blankets for camouflage, and looked like harmless lumps of snow. But underneath they were clad in leather armour from Dark Hollow, and armed with daggers, swords and clubs. Mish and Mash also clutched the small wooden barrels that Bridget had given them, although they had still not told anyone else what they had planned to do with it. Crom had emerged from his father's old chambers looking especially impressive. He wore a suit of lacquered scale armour made from toughened, painted layers of leather, and he carried a long shield, a sword, and an ash spear. Podkin had wondered if it might be a magic weapon, like his own father's dagger, but Crom had just shaken his head. If there was a sacred treasure in Dark Hollow, that wasn't it. They all sat in silence, apart from Pook's gentle snoring, looking down on the empty rabbits who were finishing their dinner. The Gorm were sitting around a fire inside the camp fences. Behind them was a cook's bench. They had all been tucking into bowls of stew and loaves of bread, and their plan had worked. Bridget's concoction should start taking effect any minute now. Podkin held his breath and waited some more. The Gorm sat motionless around the fire. None of them moved or even seemed to speak. Surely the sleep potion should have started working by now. "Come on," Podkin urged. "Fall over, have a lovely evening snooze." As if they had heard his silent wish, one of the Gorm wobbled. He swayed forwards, backwards, and then, like an enormous iron tree being toppled, keeled over into the snow, face first. None of the others moved or even reacted. Then, just as if a giant row of dominoes had been knocked over, they all began to topple, crashing to the ground and lying there, half covered in frost and snoring like babies. "It worked," Paz whispered. "Podkin, you're a genius. And you too, Bridget." "Don't count your carrots before they're grown," said Bridget. "You're not even in the camp yet." "Give it a few more moments," said Crom. Then we go down, and we will find out on Thursday what happens in the battle. See you later.